the truth teller, the one and only Tucker Carlson.
Have we ever seen anything like this?
The impact of Black Lives Matter and their millions, they're not going to stop, and they should not.
The people who are responsible for it are the most dishonest.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
What you're watching is not a political movement, it's evil. Imagine a government that totally destroys the country and then criminalizes complaining about it.
Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy.
Yes. Well, the one thing you can't censor is a live event. He stood up after being shot in the face. This was no longer a man. This was the leader of the movement.
Trump is the man who can save the investigation.
Call back Trump.
You people ain't gonna something I say. Now you're getting Spain.
We're in downtown Madrid going to ignite a protest.
You for sure.
The second you decide to tell the truth about something, you are filled with this power from somewhere else. Try it. The more you tell the truth, the stronger you become. Free speech is the main right that we have. Without it, we have no right.
I was coming in backstage. This is our 11th city we've been in this month. And you have a kind of formula for how things work. And I'm standing backstage and I see this ice bucket full of green bottles. And I reached my hand, I don't know what it was. It's Mountain Dew. And I said to the person I'm talking to, like, why do we have Mountain Dew? JD Vance drinks Mountain Dew. Absolutely drinks Mountain Dew. And I know JD Vance very well, and I know that he's like the most authentic person in politics. But you often hear people say, and you can feel it on him, he's not, he went to Yale Law School, you know, he's not really from Appalachia. I found Mountain Dew. That's for real. You're not drinking this. They don't have this at the Aspen Institute. Trust me. I was so impressed. And I'm very sympathetic to, well, I love actually his politics, but I'm not gonna try that. Sorry. I'm gonna buy a little Perrier. I'm not a man of the people. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry it took so long to get in. This is what happens when your security is run by your opponent, I think. It's kind of hard to have that. It's a funny system that we have. No other country does that, I don't think. Well, there's no, we'll take care of security, don't worry. And just to make it super efficient, we're gonna let the TSA handle it. Because when you want things to work smoothly, like when you're late for your flight on Memorial Day weekend. Anyway, so I'm sorry about that. We have no control over it. And I'm not alleging anything other than what's totally obvious. It's just amusing me. And I heard the media are here. I know. And I heard even the New York Times, Politico, they're all here. No, someone to stand up and announce who they're voting for if they would. I don't know. I don't have my glasses on, so I don't know where they are. I can't hear what you're saying, but I know I agree with you. If you were trying to express loathing, I'm on your side. And by the way, I would know, having spent over 30 years in their lair and no amount of sonic cold plunge, hot bath combinations can scrape off the moral stain of all the time that I spent there. But anyway, thank you so much. So I'm gonna, because we're running a little late, I want to get to the interview with Senator Vance pretty quickly, but I just wanted to say, and it's much more interesting than anything I'm going to say anyway, but I just want to say something that he knows really well because he's been on the road since the convention, but I'm just remembering since it's been a long time since I've been on the road, which is that if you experience your country, the one that you were born in, and that you love and your ancestors built and you will die in, America, if you experience it through your phone, which I hate to admit is mostly the way I do experience it, you really get a distorted picture of it. And it feels like a country at war with itself. And in fact, we're told that very often. This country's on the brink of civil war. And everybody hates everybody else on the basis of some immutable characteristic, on the basis of race primarily, but also of sex and then political affiliation. And basically, America is about to explode. It's the crock pot you forgot to turn off. And it's about to just blow up and wreck your kitchen. I love that. You know, it might be kind of an non sequitur, like scream out a 1970s era Leonard Skinner song in the middle of a pause. But to me, I'm grooving with you, baby. I know exactly what you mean. That's right. I can't quite articulate what you mean, but I know what you mean. Freebird. Anyway, the point is, you really get the sense that the country is at war with itself and that people really hate each other. And when you travel it, and we're going coast to coast for a month, we already have been coast to coast, that's not the experience you have at all. Like, at all, actually. I can just tell you, as officially, and the New York Times has chronicled this at great length, as one of the most hated people in the world, I kind of expected to be yelled at. You know what I mean? At like an airport or a Starbucks or the lobby of a hotel. Not one time. And no, it has nothing to do with me. It's not because I'm so great, people secretly love me. It's that Americans secretly don't really hate each other, which is kind of amazing. It's true. They don't. And yet they have been convinced that they do, and they have in fact been inspired to hate each other systematically for decades. And I've watched this. The entire presentation of American history, again, driven by the New York Times, I've got to say, wherever the correspondent is, the entire presentation of American history is designed to make you believe that this is a country based on hate, the hate of Americans for each other. And they have been telling us, well, I'm 55, so they've been telling it for at least the 50 years I can remember going to school. They've been telling us this version. And that is the core problem of the country, is that people really, really hate each other. And looking back on it, I've been thinking of it all week, I don't think I've ever seen that. Ever. Not one time. And what I see actually is just the opposite. I see people of all backgrounds and all beliefs totally determined to get along with each other, and doing it despite the encouragement of their leaders. And I think two things about that. One, I think it's quite revealing of our leaders. Because what leader wants the people he leads to hate each other? That's like really the kind of the darkest thing you could ever want. If you're a parent, you know, it is evil. It is the definition of evil. What parent wants his or her kids to hate each other? You want the opposite. Because when you die, the one thing you leave behind is the love of your children for each other. That's how your memory continues, because your children love each other. Almost no parent needs to have this explained. Every parent knows it intuitively. And it's not just the family, the most basic and important organization in human civilization. It's every organization, from your office to a military unit, to your state, to your country. Leaders have as their first and most sacred duty the responsibility to unite the people who follow them, to keep them whole, to keep them together. And to do the opposite of that systematically over decades, using the media primarily, but also now just from the podium, is evil. It's absolutely evil because it's a perfect inversion of their duty. And they have tried harder than really any task. They certainly haven't put their effort into managing the economy or paving the roads or making it safe to walk to CVS. They've done just the opposite because they've been so focused on making us hate each other. So that's the first thing I noticed. So they're not just incompetent, they're really bad on a deep level, actually. No country deserves the leaders that we have. No state deserves the leaders you have, by the way, I can say. I've spent so much time in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I always think to myself, how is the worst place in the state allowed to run the entire state? I'm not gonna name it. But why do they have all the power? Why do the people with the longest track record of failure have total control over the rest of the state, which is beautiful and filled with great people? Like, how does that work? It doesn't look like democracy to me. But you can extrapolate outward to an entire country and say, how does a country of 350 million great people have such rotten leaders? And that really is a theological question that I can't answer, but it does. And here's the last thing I'll say for introducing Senator J.D. Vance, my friend. They haven't succeeded. And that is something to marvel at and to celebrate and to really deeply think about. Everyone's always shocked, particularly in these last 4 years since, I'll put it precisely, since Memorial Day 2020, when the revolution began without telling us, and the country that you grew up in and all of its institutions turned upside down and things you really loved and respected disappeared and people who are close to you vanished from your life, and really it's been chaotic since then, all by design. And everyone I know, I think most people who are paying attention have had occurred to them at one time or another, like, wow, there's so much evil in the world, I'm shocked. And that's true, clearly. But what too few people, very much including me, pause to consider is how much good there is in the world. Good that makes no sense. The love between people who don't know each other, who have nothing obviously in common except their common Americanness, their citizenship here. People who are not gaining anything by being kind to each other. In fact, who are encouraged not to be kind to each other and are anyway. What's that? That is as every bit as unnatural as the evil that we see. It does not exist in nature. It is outside of nature. It is supernatural. And that is moving among us too. And I think it's worth celebrating that. If you look around this room, the first thing you realize is all that stuff they told you about how you were crazy because you noticed. Turns out you're not crazy because there are thousands of people sitting right next to you who had exactly the same instincts. And they came from very different places to arrive at the same destination, which is a commitment to being honest with themselves and those around them. That's all it is, it's honesty. It's not political, it's not ideological. It's being unwilling to lie. And every person in this room at one level or another, at one time or another, has arrived at the exact same conclusion, which is, I'm just gonna say what I think is true. And it turns out it's not just you sitting alone in your rec room throwing beer cans at the TV, feeling like a freak. It's most people in this country. And there's no greater blessing than knowing that. So on that note of totally non-political hope, I want to introduce Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, running with Donald Trump.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next Vice President of the United States, Senator J.D. Vance.
These United States, we're the ones who need it most. Let the rest of the world help us
Better than the Tim Walz event down the road. I just saw a picture of him in Bethlehem. There were like 27 people, all of whom clearly worked for the party. It's so sad. Sorry. Here I am bragging about crowd size. I've never done a political event before. And I got right to it. So you actually do drink Mountain Dew, you're not joking?
Diet Mountain Dew, yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite drink. You need a lot of caffeine on the campaign trail. Though it's interesting, it's become a bit of a thing because I probably had like one Diet Mountain Dew a week before I started running for vice president. And then I started talking about it, and then people always brought me Diet Mountain Dews, so now I drink like 3 of them a week. One of many ways in which my health has gotten much worse, but I will say...
You're not endorsing it from a medical standpoint, is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. But I will say, Tucker, it's awesome to be here, not just because I've been looking forward to this, but 2 hours ago, I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna have to call Tucker and cancel. I'm not gonna be able to come. And the reason is because we have our kids with us, and I took my boys on the campaign trail. We did a bunch of events all over Pennsylvania, which is a great state. It's great to be here. And we go to Hershey Park, right, which is just across the street. Hershey Park's great. And my son says, my 7-year-old says, if I go on a roller coaster with you, you have to go on this spinny ride with me. And so, legitimately, it's one of these things where it's not just spinning around, but then the thing that you're sitting in is also spinning around. So it's like spinning within spinning. And legitimately, 3.5 seconds in, I think to myself, I'm gonna throw up all over this ride. And it's like now that I'm a vice presidential candidate, I'm much more, people know who I am. And so there are 10 separate iPhones that are tuned on me. And all I can think to myself is if I throw up in this thing, it's gonna be like one of those old sprinklers, doop, 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 doop. So I white knuckle, close my eyes. My 7-year-old and my 4-year-old are like, Dad, what's going on? I'm like, I'm trying not to throw up, boys. Just leave Daddy be. And then we get off the ride, and I am so nauseous. I'm like, I'm gonna have to cancel tonight because I'm gonna go home to the hotel.
I think you're looking at it wrong. Puking on the tilt-a-whirl is the most authentically American thing you can do. No one would ever call you a phony again. I booted on the tilt-a-whirl. I mean, honestly, from Mountain Dew.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm feeling a lot better now, and it's great to be with you. And how's it going?
Well, you tell me. You're running for national office. I don't even know what I do for a living at this point. But
neither do I.